What is up, guys? Gabe here. Welcome back to another video. On today's video, if you couldn't tell by that title, we're gonna be talking about the Canon EOS-R, which I'm on my way right now to return, but more on that later. Let's go. So shout out to these people right here. People at the AVC store, which were the ones that actually lent me this camera for this review. So shout out to them, guys. Check them out if you're ever in Miami. If you live in Miami, come here to the store and check them out. Alright guys, so I am back and I'm ready to tell you everything I think about the Canon EOS-R. So for this review, I'm only going to talk about the photography aspects of this camera. That is the reason why I thought about getting this camera and wanted to review it. I'm not really going to cover video at all because there's other channels and other people that have done a better job than what I could have done to cover that aspect of the camera. So we're just going to focus on photography, the way that the camera handles out in the field, the real world experience with the camera. Now let's start with all the good things that this camera has. First of all, when you pick up this camera and you hold it in your hand, it just feels great. For being a mirrorless camera and being smaller than a regular DSLR or regular camera, it feels great in the hand. The grip, it has a nice size. It just feels very comfortable to hold, much more comfortable than my Sony a7 III that I got right here. This camera has weird ergonomics and it's not as comfortable to hold as a Canon, hence why it has this this wooden base plate here. So that makes this camera much more easier to hold. But with the Canon, it didn't feel like you needed like a battery grip or something like that to hold it, because it was just very comfortable to hold. So that's a bonus point for the Canon right there. Another great thing about the Canon is the flip out screen, so you can get all those low angles and stuff like that. That was a great addition as well. As far as the outside of the camera goes, there's not much more I really want to say about that camera. Moving on to other things that the camera has that they're great. Focusing system is insanely good. It's very quick to focus. It's very accurate. I didn't see it hunting. I didn't see it missing any shots. I think that almost all of the shots that I took with that camera were perfectly in focus. So no complaints there. Everything worked pretty good. Battery life on the camera was great. I was able to do 4 or 5 hour shoots and taking about between 1500 to about 2000 images on a single battery. No problems there. The camera was performing very admirably, and I was always comparing it either to my Sony a7 III or my Canon 1DX Mark II, because I was trying to see if this camera was going to make its way into my camera bag, because I have a lot of Canon lenses from over the years that I've collected, and I also shoot with a Canon 1DX Mark II, so I wanted to see if I could, you know, capitalize on that. And everything in this camera was pointing in that direction. The LCD on the camera, the back screen, and the viewfinder for your eye, they were so good, way better than the Sony's. The color rendition was better. Just the way that the images looked in the back of the camera, as well as what you were seeing through the eyepiece, was way better than Sony. So when I was using the camera, I was very happy and very pleased with what I was seeing. And actually, when I was showing the pictures in the back of the camera to my clients, they were like, "Oh my God, this picture looks great," or blah blah. So everything about the camera was going insanely great. Everything was going good. I mean, it was almost the perfect camera. The fact that it has one card slot didn't bother me at all, because I generally don't really use anything other than one card when I'm shooting. So that was not a downer for me. I mean, it's not important for me. So when I got the camera, I got it with the control ring adapter to adapt my Canon EF lenses. And that was working perfectly. It was focusing really quick. It was acting as if it was mounted directly to the camera. So that was a huge bonus point for me. I was super happy, super excited about that. So yes, more good things and more kept coming from this camera. I was actually thinking, hey, this might be the camera for me to replace my a7 III and just stick to Canon or come back to Canon, right? Wrong, dead wrong. See, there is something about this camera, something that was happening with the camera after, you know, all the experiences that I had in the field, which were so positive, that really took all of those positive things that I was getting from the camera and completely obliterated them. And that one big flaw that this camera has is the way that it handles files in the computer. Now, in my testing of the camera, I was doing a lot of different scenarios. I shot portraits, I shot, you know, a little bit more lifestyle portraits. I also shot vehicles. I was shooting in direct sun. I was using strobes. I was using natural light. I was shooting in darker environments. I wanted to test this camera out as much as I could before I could make my own firm decision. And everything, like I said before, was going exactly as I expected it to be for my Canon. However, that's when I saw some really big problems. And those really big problems were the way that it handles the files. There's nothing wrong, I have to say, about the files. The files are great, the files are crisp, they're a great size to work with, so you can crop in and do everything that you need to. The file coloring was handling great too. Everything was almost perfect, except for the fact that you cannot even think about pushing the camera shadows. That's when I was noticing a lot of problems in this camera. A lot of weird lines started appearing in the images. If you can take a look at some of these images and you see these lines that kept appearing in the shadows, and there's also some sort of like magenta cast that was coming up, which was really destroying all the images that I was trying to use. So immediately, to me, that was a big no-no. I cannot trust this camera on a professional set if it's gonna let me down every time I need to push a shadow. And this was not the camera for me to keep in my camera bag or even add to my camera bag. I was even comparing it to my Canon EOS M50, which is the one that I'm recording this video with, and actually the files in the M50, if I dare to say them, looked better in the computer than the ones on the EOS-R. Why was that? I mean, the Canon M50 is like a $600 camera and the EOS-R is a $2,300 camera. Why is a cheaper camera outperforming a brand new camera? It didn't make any sense to me. Supposedly the sensor on the EOS-R is the same as a 5D Mark IV, but I highly doubt it. I used to own the 5D Mark IV and used it extensively, so I know almost everything about that camera. And the way that it handled the files were nowhere near the same as the way that the Canon EOS-R did. So maybe they used the same sensor, but definitely they crippled that sensor. They crippled it to the point that it's unusable for a professional. I wouldn't recommend this camera for anybody who's a professional and wants to put this camera in their camera bag. So who is this camera for? Well, maybe if you're an existing Canon user and you have a lot of money invested in their glass and you're looking for a lighter camera, and also you're the type of person that doesn't really edit their pictures that much or too in depth, then maybe this is the camera for you, because it is actually an exceptionally performing camera. It handles great. I have no complaints on the functionality and usability of the camera, except for the fact that I couldn't edit the images the way that I typically do because there were some weird things happening in those shadows. It completely destroyed my workflow and my processing of images. So if you're that type of person, if you're like me and you like to edit, you know, in a certain way, then maybe this is not the camera for you. If you're not a Canon user and you want to get a brand new camera that's a mirrorless camera that's really hot on the market, I don't think that you should get this camera either. Mainly because this guy's in the market, the Sony A7 III, and this camera is really good. This camera is actually like pretty impressive on how good it is. This camera is better in the focusing abilities, has way better battery life. Almost everything on this camera is way better than the Canon EOS-R. And this camera is also cheaper than the EOS-R. So there are a ton of other options that you can go out there instead of the EOS-R that you get better bang for your buck. So that's why I cannot really recommend this camera to many people who are looking to get into Canon mirrorless cameras, or even if you're a professional and you maybe were thinking of switching to the EOS-R, don't think that this is the smartest choice that you're gonna have. I mean, and I've been a Canon shooter almost all my life. I started with Canon and I'm still with Canon, shooting almost every day with Canons, be it the 1DX or my cinema cameras. I mean, I really like Canon and I am very invested in Canon. Even for a person like me, I wouldn't take the Canon EOS-R and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. And like I said, it's not that the camera is bad, because it isn't, it's just not the right camera for me. At this point, the smartest thing that I can do is stick to Sony, build this Sony kit, and keep working with this amazing camera. And there you have it. That is my review. Those are my own thoughts on the Canon EOS-R. If you have any different thoughts, let me know in the comments below. Do you have a Canon EOS-R camera and have experienced the same things that I did in my files? Let me know in the comments below as well. And that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.